Action.
Hi, and welcome to episode 2 of the Grudge Report featuring the Expanse. My name is Margaret Reeb, and I am a member of the development team at the SETI Institute. And I am here with Franck Marchis, who is a senior astronomer at the SETI Institute, chief scientific officer at Unistellar, and Frenchman. And we are here today to talk about the latest episode of The Expanse. Actually, I don't know if I can say latest episode because quite a few have dropped, but we're going to talk about episode 2 of season 5 of The Expanse, which recently dropped on Prime Video. And I will tell you that if you are not caught up on The Expanse, it's time to hit pause and go get caught up so that we don't spoil you. We are going to talk about anything and everything from the show leading up to episode 2 of season 5. So turn back or beware. And there's a lot to talk about in this episode. I think what we'll do is we'll go area by area, give a quick rundown of the plot that's happened, and then turn to Franck for some interesting scientific insights. How does that sound, Franck?
That sounds good to me. Very good.
Good. Yeah. So let's start on Earth, because Earth is where it all started in this show. The main plot thread that we're following on Earth is Amos, who is the Rosinante's enforcer, really. He's a tough guy, but does provide some comedic relief. I believe he's a fan favorite. He has returned to his home city of Baltimore because his mother figure, Lydia, sadly passed away, and he wants to tie up some loose ends. So we get a lot of really interesting insights into who he is as a character. He gets kind of caught up in this drug trafficking ring, and we see a lot of the inner workings there, but we also get a really close up look at Earth. What did you think of this, Franck? What Baltimore looks like in this future scenario?
Well, I watched the scene multiple times, the introduction scene when they basically arrive on the city and you can see the building. And what really is remarkable is that this is Earth of 2350. Or 51 or 52, something like that, right? That's 230 years later compared to us. And Earth didn't change that much. I mean, what is different is there is no cars anymore in the city. Apparently they decided to ban personal transportation. The only thing you can see is bikes and people walking and trains.
And trains, yeah.
On every building of the city, you have now solar panels, which is basically a way to get cheap renewable energy. When we arrive in the city itself, especially when Amos is sitting and looking at the people, I pause sometimes and I look at the way people were dressed. They look so 2020.
They really do.
They do dress 2020 without colors. For some reason, everything is gray, the building and the people as well. Let's put that in comparison to our world. 230 years ago, that was 1790. That's when George Washington gave his first speech at the State of...
and nothing has changed since then.
Okay. It's unbelievable.
The change is unbelievable. It would be, I think, if people from that era were magically transported to now, many things would be unrecognizable.
Yeah. It will be for them to be like, wow, what happened to our world? All this new technology, the way we dress, of course, we dress with colors, styles. But for this world in The Expanse, I mean, Earth seems to have kind of solidified into the technology of 2020.
Yeah, they've really stagnated. I mean, to your point, if you look at the shot of Baltimore, you see that the water level has risen and there's maybe some machinery or architecture that's underwater, and then there are holocaustments on the top of the buildings. But beyond that, nothing much has changed.
And when you go inside the buildings, when Amos is talking to the partner of his mother, you can see there is mattress like we have now, because he's packing, so we can see the furnitures. He looks like kind of famous IKEA studio, basically. It didn't change that much. And this is very concerning to me, because as a scientist, you probably know that as well. this is a complete contradiction with what we expect for the future. There is this kind of theory which has not been yet proven. It's called accelerating change. People in the Silicon Valley are fan of this idea that technology is expanded at the exponential rate. Ray Kurzweil wrote a book about this, for instance, and he basically say that based on this analysis, 100 years of progress in the 21st century would be like 20,000 years of progress at today's rate. So it seems to imply that in 200 years, the world will be radically different to what it is now, because the progress will be accelerating. So we have technology that you and me cannot even envision now that will have pop up and be used by these people. Something interesting that I read recently on this accelerating change is that it's not only that the technology evolved quickly, but it's also that technology become more accessible quickly to people. So there is this famous curve that you can find on Wikipedia, in fact, showing the time it took for people to get telephone, and then computers, and now cell phones, and internet. I guess it's faster and faster, basically. I mean, shorter, the amount of time for 1/4 of the population of Earth to get a cell phone, is significantly shorter now compared to the amount of time it took them to get personal computers.
Yeah, the proliferation of cutting edge technology is minimizing. So you would assume that, technology would be everywhere, like advanced technology in this future, but it's not.
It's not. So what happened? And that's a very interesting idea. What happened on Earth? What happened that stopped this accelerating change? And I have an idea, maybe totally not proven, and probably people who have read the book will rewrite comments about it. What happened is that Earth basically dedicated all its resources, energy, the smart people to space. And when you see that, when you look at Luna, we have a lot of scenes on Luna. Luna is part of the Earth system, right? And Luna is super high tech. I mean, you can see outside, there is those buildings, they design an entire habitat on Luna. There is cities apparently on Luna, and there is also the transportation system. So probably what happened is that progress stopped on Earth because they basically dedicated their resources to develop space. And Earth became kind of this old-fashioned museum world. You can see that as well when when Amos go to see his brother. You may have noticed in his office, which is gigantic, by the way. I would love to have an office like that. You have motorbikes for the 2020. You have a pool table, and we have baseball gloves on the wall.
Oh yeah, it looks like a throwback.
Yeah.
Office of a different time. Yeah, it's interesting because I would think that, I think you're right. I think it's, the whole show seems to indicate that Earth put a lot of resources and time and technological development into space. But you would think that some of that would filter back to Earth in some degree, but I guess not. Maybe there's some sort of divide between people who want to keep Earth the way it was and people who are more technologically minded. Because you're right, when we go to Luna, where Avasarala is, doing her thing and doing her investigation into Marcos and what might be going on with asteroids, we're talking about stealth technology, right? That plot, beyond just the setting of Luna, what's going on, she's very involved in this very technologically in-depth plot line of stealth, right? Hiding asteroids from other technology that we have in space. And that's very advanced, and it's very different than the conversations that you see going on Earth.
Yeah, there probably some kind of nostalgia also on the Earth side, and that's the reason they have all this old-fashioned technology. They probably don't want to adopt new technology because maybe the people who decided to stay on Earth are the poorest because they don't have the money to go in space, or the people who kind of decided to keep Earth the way it was and kind of like a gigantic museum. I don't know, where will you go, you?
Well, it's interesting because I think about Mars a lot because I love Mars, but that's a planet that's really hard to terraform, and I would be upset about not being able to go outside. But I like I don't like that the Martians are so militaristic, but I like that they're very technologically minded and they're very much looking for the next thing that's around the corner. And I wonder if because at first when I watched this show, it's hard for me to understand the divide between Earth and Mars and how they're at odds, because I would assume that you would, it's a colony of Earth. It was, but I think there was such a cultural divide maybe where Earth just wanted to stay how it was and didn't see the reason to put so many resources into accelerating change and technology so quickly. But the Martians, their life depends on that. And so the culture was such that eventually, even though we're all Earthlings in a way, they got into this Cold War that they're in. I mean, I would love to live on Mars, I think. Where would you stay? Would you stay on Earth or would you go to Luna or Mars?
I think I will go on Luna.
Luna?
Yeah, because this way I will be able to see Earth.
Always. You wouldn't feel so far away.
It's far, but it's not that far to the point that I know I will never be able to go back. And Earth is beautiful from far away.
It is beautiful from far away. That's very true.
In the show, in fact, when the daughter come to visit her, say I remember the first time you saw Earth, your eyes got bigger and something like that. And because it's true, Earth is a beautiful planet seen from space and seen from the moon specifically, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, you'd go there for the views.
I go there for the views, but then I would probably go cross the ring gate and explore one of those exoplanets.
Or somewhere else. That would be very cool too. Yeah, I didn't even consider that in my answer to your question, but yeah, I definitely go through a ring gate. But before we go down, let's talk about Mars. So we have Alex, who is a crew member of the Rocinante, the pilot, who is from Mars. He's returned to kind of try and patch things up with his family, but that plot doesn't really come into the show, this episode. But Bobby, who is his friend, who is an ex-Martian Marine, tells him that she is on the trail of a whole conspiracy within the Martian government to sell technology to the Belters, and she's been buying up a lot of technology to kind of trace the lines and see who's at the top of this conspiracy funded by Avasarala. And so Alex and her team up, and that takes Alex to the Martian War College, I believe, and he's trying to chase down a lead. So I was really struck by the War College scene where you have this giant hologram where the lecturer is talking about the ring defense, and it's a very interesting look into their culture. Yeah. And what did you think about the Mars?
So I look also, the name of the place where they're going is the Asteria Naval.
I noticed that too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What is that? So I looked it up, but I'm curious what you found.
So, first, I would like to say, since you mentioned I'm French-American, by the way, but there is one thing I really love is the fact that the name of the admiral is Sauveterre. So translation, it's a French name. The translation of this, to save Earth.
Really?
Yeah, so his name is in complete contradiction to who he is. Because his name means that he will save Earth, but that's not at all what he is. He's
I don't think that's what's going to happen.
Who obviously don't care about Earth. His future,
not at all.
The future, and I say in the lecture he gave, it's all about Mars. I really like the speech because he clearly describes basically the way the Martians see themselves. They think they're the future of the human race, but this ring gates is kind of for them an opportunity. He say it will radically alter the tactical, economical, strategical landscape, but you have to carry on the dream of Mars from being a planet circling a lonely single sun to a vision of humanity that can encompass 1,000 stars. So the ambition is clear here. The Martian wants to go, use the ring gates, and basically visit those worlds and basically make those worlds the new Mars, these new exoplanets. For the science, I'd give a lot of lectures, and I will love one day to be able to give a lecture with holographic projection like that.
You would? That would upgrade all the lectures that you've had to listen into, as if they could use holograms.
Yeah, it would be amazing. I would still have the French accent, of course, but I think the visual are interesting because they help people to really understand the concept and so on. So there is holographic projection already on Earth. I mean, the last time I was at CES, I saw this company. They were doing those holographic projection system, which are the size of human being, basically, for the moon.
Right.
So this technology will probably develop and get more accessible.
Oh yeah, I mean, did you read the story about? I think that at one concert they made Tupac, a hologram of Tupac, and he, during the musical, and then I think one of the Kardashians gave another one of them a hologram of their father. So it's definitely out there. It's probably not accessible to everybody, but yeah, it's becoming better and better.
Yeah, but they also have their phone and they do this, and then poof, there is a projection on the sky.
I know. I like that. I would like a hologram from
so
my phone.
How they do this holographic projection anywhere, I don't know, because the system that I mentioned to you and that you mentioned for this concert are basically some kind of projection devices, but there is a projectors around. It doesn't work like magically like this in thin air. We don't have that yet. It may come, but not yet possible.
Maybe one day. It would be cool. One thing too that came to mind in the scene on Mars, the lecture scene, when you were talking about how it very much shows the way that the Martians think and sort of kind of their plan for the future. I have been struggling a little bit with understanding why Martians might be selling some of this stealth technology and war technology to the Belters, because it seems counterintuitive. But I'm wondering if maybe they're doing it because they want to help the Belters take out Earth, or they've maybe come to some sort of agreement with the Belters, because it seems like the Martians think that Earth is their number one competitor, right, for control of the ring and control of the world on the other side. And they seem to look down on Earth quite a lot. So I just wanted to add that bit. It was a scene that did a lot of work in many ways.
Yeah, I think it's the competition for the ring gates will basically make that Mars is probably doing some kind of alliance, an official one, by providing a terrorist group some technology to attack Earth. So Earth is too busy trying to defend themselves, and they can grab the ring gates and be done with it.
Right.
But we see.
Right.
This is probably going to happen in the next episodes.
Couple episodes.
Yeah.
And since we're on the topic of the Belters, we should probably talk about their storyline. There are quite a few of them. I have to give a shout out to Camilla Drummer because she is one of my absolute favorite characters. We'll probably talk more about her when we talk about the next episode, episode 3, but she has become a pirate, and I'm sure her plot thread will weave into the larger plot about Marcos at some point. But most of our Belter action, the bulk of the plot for this episode, happens on Tycho Station. And we find out that the reporter, I believe her name is Monica Stewart, who has been following the Rocinante, she leaves a message for Holden, the captain of the Rocinante, who's on Tycho while the ship undergoes repairs. She has left him a message that she has more information about some folks, I think Belters, trying to get a hold of the proto-molecule. But when Holden goes to look for her, she has been kidnapped. So that's a very interesting development on Tycho Station.
Plenty of things that I like in the Belter world. When first is this absence of gravity. There is always a moment like this where they remind you there is no gravity where they are. So you can hear when they walk these magnetic boots.
Yeah.
Make them walk on surface. Sometimes there is scene where you can see one of them sitting on so-called floor and another one walking on the ceiling. That's because it's a 3-dimensional world. There is no gravity, so they can walk anywhere they want. So of course, it changed the structure of the world. Astronauts say that about the space station. In fact, after a while, they're used not to see up and down, and because in the International Space Station, every size of the cube is used to store things, so they walk anywhere.
Right.
And when they come on Earth, they have a hard time again working in this 2-dimensional surface. So in the Belter world, we have this, not in the Tycho specifically, because Tycho seems to have some kind of gravity, so they have tables and so on. But when they show the small spaceship, you can see there is no gravity.
Right.
What I like for the science or the technology, one of the most remarkable scene, I think, is when they try to enter into this to save Monica from in the cargo container.
Oh yeah, she's in the storage container where there is no gravity, right? Because it's out
because it's in space. She doesn't know that, and she tried to open it stupidly. So of course,
that was a very bad move on her part.
Yeah, that was a bad move. She could have stood right there, but it's okay. So she's stuck there, and the air is going away because it's in space. My question is, how does she get warm? By the way.
So yes, I think there's a lot of really interesting things going on here because clearly they made an environment within the storage container for her, at least oxygen. But to your point, it would probably be very cold, right?
Very cold, yes, because space is very cold. So she should be already freezing. But anyway, so they arrive into this spaceship, into this outfit, and they try to dig a hole. But of course, if you make a hole in a container like this and you're in space, all the atmosphere is going to escape very quickly. So they create this temporary chamber, which is kind of a bubble. It's kind of an umbrella, but bigger umbrella. And that produce oxygen magically and heat magically. And that allow them to go into the container. This is great tech. For once again, it's amazing the contrast between Earth and the rest of the other planets. Like this,
right?
This is high tech, basically, something that does not exist yet. I think you wanted to mention as well that the
hyper oxygenated blood that they give her. Yeah, that's a really interesting concept. I mean, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I was very curious if just giving somebody a dose of, really oxygenated blood would undo any of the damage that they would be exposed to in an environment where they weren't getting oxygen, if she would magically wake up and, be able to breathe the atmosphere again in her container. I don't know, but I like it. It comes up a couple of times, I think, throughout the series, but it's an interesting, again, it would be lovely technology to have around if it's possible.
So how many liters of blood do we have? I think
Google it. I have no idea. I'm not even going to guess.
5 liters. 5. Yeah. So they have to hyperoxygenate the blood. So that means they have to store enough oxygen for 5 liters of blood into this tiny capsule.
It's very small.
Very small. It should be liquid oxygen, first of all, to increase the capacity. So it should be super cold. And somehow you cannot, of course, put some super cold liquid oxygen into the body of someone without killing.
That would be bad for many reasons.
So there is some technology here that we don't really know about, and but it's science fiction, right? We don't have to explain everything.
Right. It's an interesting concept, and I think there are parts there that could make sense, but you're right. It's sort of, the actual nitty gritty of how you would execute it isn't quite there yet, but it's something that makes enough sense.
So there is science that I want to talk about, which make more sense in the show. Is the spotters.
Yes, that's great. Yeah, what stuck out to you about that?
Maybe you should explain first what they are in the show, and then I explain the science.
So I believe they are satellites that are outside or placed strategically around Earth in order to identify near-Earth objects like asteroids or maybe even comets that could pose a threat to Earth, that could hit Earth in its orbit and wreak some havoc, similar to the asteroid that took out the dinosaurs a long time ago. So it seems like Earth has invested in planetary defense, and we see in the show something shoot by one of their satellites in the near space around Earth. I don't think it's in the atmosphere. I think it's kind of outside of the atmosphere of Earth, and it doesn't seem to pick anything up, but something definitely shot by it.
So my take on this is that those asteroid spotter satellites are probably kind of a sphere of satellites around Earth that look in different directions. We have a moment in the show where we see them surrounding Earth, I think, but they're not in a sphere, they're on a circle, as a circle. So maybe just a circle around Earth.
You would need a sphere, though, in order to see everywhere, right?
Ideally, you will, but of course, there is funding issue here, so...
Even in the future, there are funding issues. So they put it in the best spot that they could.
So they probably put a ring around Earth, and they look up and down, etc. So what they are basically satellites, space satellites. The technology they use, we don't really know. But if you want to detect an asteroid passing by, what we use is typically a telescope, right? So we have an array of small telescopes to search for asteroids on the surface, and they do that in visible light. So they use the light of the sun reflected by the asteroid. But we know that it's maybe more efficient to use the mid-infrared light, because in this case, we see the asteroid, even if it's not reflecting the light of the sun, because you see the heat coming from the asteroid. So that we have a project like this. When I say we, NASA has a project called the Sentinel satellite, the Sentinel reconnaissance satellite. It changed name again, so it was NEOCAM.
It had a rebrand.
And it will basically be looking for those asteroids passing by in mid-infrared. The reason we want to have it far away from Earth like this is because we want to be able to see close to the sun. Because so far, one of the problems of our array of Earth detector on invisible is that we can only see an asteroid which is coming from the direction opposite to the sun. So if there is an asteroid coming from the direction of the sun, we will not see it. So we basically are completely blind.
Because it won't be reflecting enough light from the sun for that.
And also because the sun with glare is too bright, so we cannot see in this.
Right, so you can't see it, yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably the technology they're using. But I look carefully the image, and I grab an image in the show. I will post it on this video. I don't see any telescope in this thing. So maybe they are using another type of technology. And in this case, I will bet they're using some kind of radar detection. The same thing we've been doing on Earth with the Arecibo or the Goldstone radar antennas. We basically launch a radar emission, and it bounces back due to the passage of the asteroid on the surface of the asteroid. And we get a signal saying, hey, we have an asteroid here. You can imagine bats use that to locate themselves in space, on Earth. So we can use the same to detect asteroids as well. So the next show is a lot about asteroids. So we're going to talk a lot about asteroids.
I'll hold all of my burning asteroid questions until the next show, because I do have quite a few. But was there anything else that you think is worth noting on this episode, scientific or otherwise?
No, I think that's all for me. Yeah, it was a good show. I love The Expanse, always love it. So, I mean, it's those characters are great. And I'm very happy to see more of the worlds doing this season.
Yeah, I really love the world building that they've done on every single location, from the dialects to the culture to just, the things that we've been talking about, the little touches of gravity to technology differences. It's really awesome. And I really love the characters, and I can kind of suspect how everything's going to come together. So it's exciting. Well, thank you, Franck, for being here. And thank you for everybody who is listening to this episode of the Grudge Report. We are a product of the SETI Institute, whose mission is to understand the nature and origins of life in the universe. If you want to know more about the SETI Institute or the Grudge Report, you can check out the links beneath this video. And you can also go to www.seti.org and check out our website. And if you like the show, if you like the mission of the organization, feel free, if you are so inclined, to give us a donation. We would very much appreciate it. We are a nonprofit research institution. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.